Well, this one's a looker and puts to shame the ugly ass gaming laptops of old. The ASUS ROG Zephyrus G15 2022 laptop comes in your choice of black or white, and a few different spec configurations going up all the way to a 6900HS and RTX 3080. This laptop feels mostly solid and premium, thanks to its fancy magnesium aluminium lid and chassis mixed with plastic inside. There's a bit of flex on the screen, but otherwise it feels good. As do the keys to type on, which of course are RGB lit with 3 levels of brightness and a bunch of RGB modes. The touchpad also works just fine. At just under 2 kilograms, it's not heavy and easy to carry around. The 240 watt power brick adds more weight and space, but it's not too bad. When opened, the G15 is raised up for more comfortable typing and better airflow. You can also fully open her up for your entertainment. Did I say that out loud? My review unit features the Ryzen 9 6900HS with an RTX 3070 Ti laptop GPU, a 15.6-inch 1440p 240Hz IPS display, comes with plenty of DDR5 memory at 4800 megatransfers, a WD 1TB M.2 NVMe, and 90 watt-hour battery. I found this configuration online for 3,799 Aussie rubles. On one side, you've got a USB 3.2 Gen 2 and micro SD card reader. On the other side is a HDMI 2.0B, 2.5 gigabit LAN, another USB 3.2 Gen 2, and dual 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C with DisplayPort out and 100 watt charging capability. The trusty 3.5mm audio jack is here too. Wi-Fi 6E is included. There's also a webcam on top of the screen, which looks okay.
Does my face look big in this?
By default, turning on the Zephyrus, you're greeted with this loud noise. Nice one, ASUS. Could you have thought of anything more annoying? Maybe if it was Crazy Frog instead. Whatever happened to computers staying silent unless spoken to? Luckily, it can and will be turned off by practically everybody in the BIOS or Armoury Crate software. I mention this since I think first impressions are very important, especially for this amount of cash. Speaking of first impressions, bloatware is never a good sign, and not only is there a bunch of McAfee garbage pre-installed, the laptop is sure to remind you about it with pop-ups too. That crap can't be uninstalled fast enough. There's a couple of other apps I'd get rid of as well, but at least they weren't as bad as McAfee. Anyway, the IPS screen looks nice with good color reproduction, and gaming on it was also a pleasant experience. I didn't notice any ghosting, even when it was dialed up to its 3 millisecond maximum. Opening up the laptop requires a decent screwdriver set. There are screws of different lengths, so keep track of where they go. The white rubber covers are especially annoying to get out. Once all the screws are removed, break her open. So we have one spare M.2 slot with no screw. Well, that's handy. We also have only one SODIMM memory slot. That means this unit has 16 gigabytes of soldered on memory, which I don't approve of, and the other 16 gigabytes comes from this extra stick. Not very upgrade friendly, are you, Zephyrus? Oh, you want to be an outside laptop? Huh? Punk? Let's quickly look at some benchmarks. The 6900HS still can't beat Intel's CPU in single-core performance, but it does very well in multi-core, especially considering it uses less power. 3D Mark for both integrated RDNA 2 and RTX graphics came back with good scores. So, you'll be able to save some battery life playing on the integrated graphics for lower-end titles. New to the ASUS Armoury software is a Mux Switch, which lets you disable the integrated graphics for an additional boost in performance. Good for when you're using AC power. Okay, enough foreplay. Let's hit the games. All are at native resolution, high detail preset. Elden Ring runs, well, From Software hasn't heard of an unlocked frame rate, so this game has no problem reaching the 60 FPS limit. Okay, let's dance, you tree bastard. Well, see you again at the next review. Forza Horizon 5 doesn't always manage to hold 144 FPS, but it's pretty close. and the FreeSync display on the Zephyrus handles the rest. For Doom Eternal, I've also turned on DLSS quality mode to push out some extra frames without any noticeable image quality loss. I've also enabled DLSS quality mode for God of War. The game has an FPS range of 80 to 120 depending on the area. Again, DLSS quality mode with Cyberpunk 2077. The FPS range here is 70 to 100.
Pull up here. Right here. I'll just drop down below.
For an esports title like Valorant, the FPS range is 2 to 300. A Beasty laptop with these specs will handle everything you throw at it, emulation-wise. But let's see how it does with PS3 at 4K. Heavenly Sword, 60 FPS, no problem. Same deal with Resistance Fall of Man. Killzone 2 can't hold the lock 30, let alone 60 FPS. The single core performance isn't enough to power through it. MotorStorm Pacific Rift mostly hangs around the mid-40s FPS range. And same with God of War Ascension. If you're a keen emulation gamer and want to dabble in PS3 stuff, I'd recommend checking out an Intel variant, which performs better thanks to stronger single core performance. Otherwise, the 6900HS is a fine CPU for gaming, content creation, and thread-heavy workloads. Temperature-wise, the CPU maxed out at 95C at 21 ambient. The GPU temp maxed out at 77, with the hotspot hitting 90. Yep, no miracles here. Powerful components in such a small space run hot. So I've shown you all the performance using the turbo mode with AC power, but you can dial down the performance and get a quieter experience with the other two options. This is really important as the fan noise on turbo mode when the laptop is pushed is loud AF. Almost as obnoxious as a startup noise. Shut the f***. Power draw maxed out at 214 watts on AC from the wall, but typical gaming was around 190. Playing 1080 movies on it, I managed to get around 9 hours of battery life, so that's pretty decent. The Zephyrus G15 is a very attractive piece of computing machinery. There's plenty of grunt under the hood too. But if you want max performance, you'll need to crank up the noise cancelling headphones or speakers. The startup noise needs to go, as does the bloatware. But I have a feeling both will show up next year too. The GPU manages to stay cool while the CPU runs hot under load. But overall, it's a good piece of gaming kit, especially for those that don't want to tinker with a BIOS or with component upgrades. Is the Zephyrus G15 on your purchase radar? Let me know, and see you next time. Cheers!